So the words arise and ascension are beautiful words, don't you think? As I sit on my back porch during the warm months, I often see hawks soaring up into the sky, catching what do we call it there? The updraft. I'm looking at down to catching the updraft, and the ease with which they wing themselves in and out of trees and onto the steeple that I can see right out of my kitchen window is really quite amazing and inspiring. So I think it must be really wonderful to rise above the surly bonds of earth and fly out into that great wild blue yonder just as a matter of course, every day, all day. So when I was a little girl growing up in an industrial section of Philadelphia, the only birds I ever saw were sparrows and pigeons. And if we went down the shore, I saw seagulls. I would often look up into the sky that was hemmed in by row houses set along narrow streets. And I wondered what it was like to fly. I'm sure you all did the same thing. And there was never enough sky for me to see. So when we went out on rides that my parents called the country, which was probably just the suburbs, or on our way down to the Jersey Shore, I used to regularly search the skies for glimpses of God. Did God sit on a throne above the clouds and peek down on us? Did God live on a sun ray and send grace sliding down to us along that shining path? How far away was heaven? Was it above the clouds? How could it be above the cloudless blue sky, which seemed empty? If God sat upon a throne, was there some sort of surface upon which the throne rested? Did the inhabitants of heaven ride around in a cloud? God seemed to be just so very far away from me and my neighborhood. And I just wanted to fly up into the heavens and hitch a ride on a cloud. So there is a reason why people want to go up and find God, far from the maddening crowd and the pure mountain air where things seem clearer. Important theological things happen on high places like Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb, and the Mount of Olives. The pagans who were mentioned in the book of Chronicles and Kings, they worshiped Baal and Astarte on what they called high places, and they even had these poles, which I can't figure out what exactly they did, but they're mentioned oftentimes in those books. Dr. King knew he had been to the mountaintop, and even Led Zeppelin sang about finding a stairway to heaven. And although some spirituals talk about going down to the river and pray, or we might get down on our knees and pray, down is usually not a word associated with God or holy things. Up has always been the operative word. The divine and their holy grace might deign to come down, but we go up. And so it has been for thousands of years. So we human beings got our first picture of the heavens up there in the early 1970s when astronauts began taking pictures from space. Remember the picture, Blue Marble, which showed a very blue and very beautiful planet Earth floating in a sea of impenetrable, velvety but empty darkness. Wherever God was, the deity quite obviously did not live in any existing plane that we could see with our human eyes. Space travel and powerful telescopes, mathematics and astrophysics tell us a wonderful story now. Scientists had known from the 1930s that the universe contained far more than what you could see with the naked eye. And although I tried really reading through the mathematical proof of what we now know as dark matter, I realized it would take me more than a month of Sundays to figure it out if I ever could. Suffice it to say that 27% of the universe cannot be seen or detected. And yet folks who are far smarter than I figured that all out. Dark matter is the invisible substance that shapes the universe, the scaffolding that holds all of the galaxies together. Without dark matter, the galaxies would not have enough mass to hold themselves together. Without dark matter, which no human being has heard, but only seen or heard, but only posited, nothing could exist. So the 13th century theologian Meister Eckhart and the 20th century theologian Paul Tillich called God the ground of our being, an apt term to describe an entity that is really impossible to explain with human words. And dark matter is in the end as useless as the word God to describe what is surely eternal, all-powerful, and almighty. Augustine captured the inability of human beings to define God when he wrote way back in the 5th century that if you come to believe that you have the words to describe God, you are describing something else. So we really have no idea. So the good news is that this God, or whatever you want to call the divine, lives in the depths of our being, and we live in the depths of God's being. In that dark but holy, starry matter that rolls around the universe and in us. God is the stuff that holds us and everything else together. Our atoms, our molecules, the whole of creation. And without God, there is nothing. So the ancients did not have our command of science and were limited in their understanding of the divine, just as we are hemmed in by our own understanding. But perhaps what the Christians came to understand as the Ascension was their way of understanding the profound unity between heaven and earth. Indeed, our oneness with plants and animals, with the ocean and the desert, oneness with even the farthest reaches of space. They could only describe Jesus's journey to God as going up to the heavens, a place they believed that mirrored earth, where the old bearded man known as God the Father reigned, because they could not imagine anything different. And many people remain comforted by that image, which is essentially as valid as any other image you might have of God. Jesus, our Emmanuel, is God with us as one of us. Jesus also needed to be one with Abba God, as we need to be one with Abba God. We only need to have eyes to see the wisdom to pull the divine thread that links us all together. When we realize our profound unity with God and with everything else, the scales fall from our eyes, and we agree with the 16th century Rabbi Moshe Cordovera, God is in all things, and all things are in God. Everything is in God, and God is in everything and beyond everything. And there is nothing besides God. And so, my friends, rise up and follow that star, as the shepherd said at the birth of Jesus. Arise to the challenges and the occasions, welcome or not, that God sends you. Give rise to goodness and kindness in all things. For your light has come, and the glory of God has risen upon you, because in the words of the late Joe Cocker, love lifts us up where we belong, where the eagles cry on the mountainside. Love lifts us up where we belong, far from the world below, up where the clear winds blow. Even though the road is long and there are mountains in our way, and we will never know what tomorrow brings. And so, my friends, let us climb up at least one step every day as we abide in God and God abides in us.